This video is intended for educational purposes, and I do not endorse any illegal activity. So first things first, I'm just going to open up Visual Studio. Today I'm going to be writing a simple keylogger, and it's going to be a three-part series. The first one's going to be writing the keylogger, and then we're going to look at payload delivery and also just encryption and how to also send the logs over email using a simple mail transport protocol. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just click on New Project, and I'm going to be doing a C# application. Make sure you picked console application, and right at the top here we have our systems, and we're going to make sure we pick these are just the systems will call certain functions that are inbuilt in Visual Studio, and we're going to need those to run our program. So first thing we're going to write out is we're going to need using system.io, and also we're going to need using systems threading, and that's just so we can pause the application when we need to, and so slow it down so it doesn't lag on slower computers. Last one, using system.windows.forms, and with this it'll come up red, which means there's an error, but what you need to do is you just need to go over to your properties and right click right click on references, sorry, and then scroll down to you see Windows System Forms and add that, and then you just type it back out again. It should be good. Okay, we might also need using system runtime into root services. I don't know how to say that properly. And now we should be ready to start writing our application. So how this keylogger is going to work is we're going to take information from the DIL import function from the user32.dil, and this logs all the keystrokes and a lot of the hardware inputs of the user, and we're going to convert those back into an integer. So first off we're just going to have to call the DIL import function, and it's important that you write the user32.dil correctly, otherwise, because it's going to look in the processes for that running. So DIL import, make sure you get your brackets, user32.dil, and we're going to write a integer, and public static integer, and we'll call that, you can call it whatever you want, but I'm going to call it get async key state. And I'm going to put in brackets, it's going to get that the value for that integer from int32.i. And now in this this main part of, if you scroll down, you can have your static void main, which is what's going to run when the program is executed. In here we're just going to write a string integer, or string variable, and we're going to call that, I'll call it file path. And C# has this really cool, Visual Studio has a really cool thing where you can type in environment.get folder path, and you can it'll find the specific folders, special folders on the computer. Now, while we're writing this file path, this is where it's going to save the logs, the logged keystrokes. For me, you can either write out the string yourself as to where you want the folder to be, or you can just go with the special folders, which I find is more versatile because it'll work on all Windows computers. So I'm just going to put mine in my music folder. And now I'm just going to write out the file path string is equal to file path plus I'm just going to add my own personal folder onto it, called, let's see here, add, and you can just add whatever you want your folder to be called. Make sure you get your backslashes in there. So I'm just going to call it log folder. So that means it's going to try and find the directory in line to music with the folder log folder. Now I'm just going to write a quick if statement, and basically what I'm going to write is if the folder, the explanation mark mean doesn't exist, if file path directory doesn't exist, then create the file path. Otherwise, do nothing. Sweet. So that'll create a little file path for us to save our logs in. So the next thing we need to write is we're just going to write another string, and the string I'm just going to call it file or path. And what this is going to do is just going to be it's just going to equal to file path plus the name of our text file. So you can call your text file whatever you want. Make sure you have that @ symbol before file path. That's just because it's a directory. So I'm going to call it plus keylogger or logged keys, and that's going to be a text file. Now next thing I'm going to do is going to go if file.exists, just like we did before. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, that's supposed to be .text. Make sure you make that .text, otherwise I won't save it as a text file. Okay, so if file exists, and we're going to create on path. If file doesn't exist, then create using the streamwriter function. We're going to create a text based on the string path. So what you write is you go using streamwriter function, and I'm just going to call it SW equals file dot create text, and it's going to create the text at the directory path, which we just defined before. And you're just going to need some brackets for that. Cool. So now what we need to do is we just need to make a new keys converter function. So I'm just going to write keys converter. I'm going to call it keys or converter or something like that. I'm just going to call it converter, and equals new keys converter. So that's just declaring the variable. And string, we just call it text, and this is going to hold the bulk of your document. And if you want an empty text, empty string, you just put 2 commas there, and it'll just leave it blank, so you can fill it in later, which is what we're going to do. We're going to fill in that text string with the keys that we get from the use the 32.do. So now I'm just going to write a while loop, and while.true, so it's just going to keep going. Or you can go while dot, 1 is greater than, 1 is less than 0, or 1 is greater than 0, or something like that. Basically, as long as it's an infinite loop. So 5 is greater than 1. There's nothing that's going to be true. So in our while loop, we're going to just put our system threading in here, and this is just to make the computer sleep. So if you put the number in there determines how long the pause is going to be. For slower computers, you might want to put 20. For a faster computer, you can probably put 10 or 5 or something. Now we're just going to call a for loop inside our while loop, and what this for loop is going to do, it's going to say, well, I is equal to 0, or while I is less than 2000, I plus plus. So it's gonna write the letters 2000 times before it times out. You can change that number in there if you want, as much as you want. Now we're gonna declare a new integer, and we're just gonna call it key state, key. So what we're going to do is we're just going to, with this integer that I'm just going to call it key. So int key equals get a sync key state, which we declared right at the top of our form, and that's going to be from whatever integer we get from user 32. Now we're just going to write an if loop, and it's going to be if the key equals 1 or the key equals -32767. Those numbers are quite specific because numbers in the user32.dil correspond to letters on the keyboard. And if we get either of these, they're probably going to be inputs from either your keyboard or your mouse or something like that. And we're just going to write right inside this loop. So if it does get them, we're going to make a string text. We'll bring up that converter, .convert to string, whatever the variable in I is at the time. And so if I press H on the keyboard, it's going to come up and it's going to write it into that text file. And then what we're going to do, last thing we're going to do is we're going to go using streamwriter that we call sw equals file.append text at path, which is where we saved our text file. So it's going to append the text every time that integer, every time it runs through with an integer. And just in the thing, in the brackets, we're going to write sw, which we call .writeLine text. So whatever's in text, it's going to write. And we're pretty much done. So now we're just going to build the solution. And you'll see that the little DOS window shows up, and I'll show you how to get rid of that in a second when you run the application system, so there's a giveaway. But we'll just check real quick. I'm just going to go to my music, where the thing was written, and go to logs, and log folder, sorry, and you'll see logs keys there. And I'm just going to write something out real quick. Something like test, test, test. And if I right click and just open up this, you can see it's actually appended the text here where it's written test, test, test. I can go over another tutorial how to make that more readable and just a bit more streamlined, so when you do email those logs through, they're a bit more readable, and you can get rid of things like mouse click and stuff like that. But that's pretty simple. So one thing you want to do to get rid of the DOS windows, you just want to open up properties and just run it as a Windows application. It's just that simple. Sweet. And now, if you want to run this as an exe, you can run it from the debug in your project files. So if you save this project and you go to your project files, you can go to there's a thing called the debug in there, and there'll be an exe of it, and if you double click on it, it should just run as normal. But I will also make another tutorial. I have made a tutorial on how to use bat files to time and trigger exes, and how to make sure the bat windows, the folders, the DOS window and the bat files don't show up using a VBS script. So everything can fit nicely in one folder and run quite discreetly in the background without the user knowing. But again, this is just for educational purposes. I hope this tutorial helps. If you want me to do a tutorial on how to use more tailored towards Mac and Apple computers, I'm glad to do that. Anyway, I hope this tutorial helped. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like and think about subscribing. This is a 1 out of 3 part series, so the second series will be showing you how to encrypt your data and write it out nicely, so you can use a simple mail transfer protocol to send it discreetly to an email of your choice. So you can gather data remotely. And then the third tutorial will be on payload delivery and how to send that to a target computer remotely, etc., etc. Hope you guys enjoyed. Cheers.